let's talk Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse.
All right. Well, I just want to tell you my overall thoughts before we get
Go
into
for it.
anything. Uh, this was a great movie that um took I will say took a while for me to get into, but once I was into it, once it got me, I was in all the way. I'd say for me, it's maybe two two quarters through. I was finally in. The first quarter for me just didn't completely work. Um, Obviously I enjoyed all the big set pieces, the all the action, the animation, the everything was fantastic. The colors, it looked amazing. The voice acting was awesome. Obviously all the, different little cameos and stuff and hints and nods, and that was all really cool. Um, it just started a bit slow for me. Which I don't know what it was. Maybe it's because I was expecting, that we were going to start off with Miles, and we were going to pick up right where we left off almost. And I was kind of thrown a curveball when we started with Gwen, and we got more of her backstory, which again I did appreciate. It was just, I don't know, it just didn't grab me initially like I really was hoping it would, especially with all these reviews.
Yeah.
So me going in, my expectations are like through the roof. Um, but I didn't, I'm not saying I didn't not like it or anything. I really did enjoy the movie. Um, but yeah, I'm really excited to see where they're going. And like I said, I am now fully in, obviously, after that movie. Uh, and it should be really interesting going forward what they're going to do with this universe because they have so many options. If, do they want to merge it with the MCU in some way, shape, or form? Do they, keep it its own thing, but they're pulling in, uh, you know, pulling in the Andrew Garfield, Tobey Maguire-ness of the universe and stuff like that. Like that, there's just so many different ways I feel like this movie can go, or where this trilogy can go. I'm excited to see what they do. But you know, if I were to say which one I liked more, I would say I liked the first one more still. But this is, second one's not far behind for me. Um, and maybe that's an I just feel like I'm in such the minority because I feel like everybody like loves this movie. And again, I don't not like it. It's just like it just didn't hit me like I thought it was going to.
Hmm. Well, I gotta say, we have not talked about this at all, or our
Yeah.
thoughts on it. I agree with you on almost everything that you said. I
Wow.
did
Yeah.
not have the problem of the first quarter,
Yeah.
not grabbing me. I was really sucked in from the off, from
Hmm.
really just right at the beginning. Um, but I will say, and I will say to stipulate this. Normally, I like to see a movie, more than one time before we do like a deep dive spoiler review on it and everything like that. I only got a chance to see this one once. I will be seeing it again, but I have only seen it once, and my theatrical experience was really less than stellar. We were in,
Yeah.
kind of a off to the side, really crowded, loud, a lot of kids running around theater.
Yeah. Yeah.
So for me, I like to be a little more fully glued and locked in on a movie. So opinion subject to change in terms of like the I kind of been telling everybody at work that like I loved this movie, but that extra gear that the first one had that I was able to lock into, I
Hmm.
didn't lock into it with this one. And so I don't
Hmm.
know if that's because of the movie or because every time there would be an emotional scene, somebody would kick the back of my seat or some kid would
Yeah.
like run past and like go, "Oh my
Yeah.
god." Because that happened quite a bit. But that being said, I do think that it is a fantastic, excellent, amazing movie. But I would still put the first one above it.
Hmm.
I do not think that it is, like the best. Some people are saying it's the best comic book movie ever made, or even the best Spider-Man movie ever made. I don't quite think it is.
Hmm.
But that being said, people have different interpretations of what that possibly means to people. Is, what does it mean to be a great Spider-Man movie? I personally would say, I loved Far From Home. I'm not saying that it's that Far From Home is better than this movie. I'm just saying
Mm-hmm.
I am somebody who I really, really loved Spider-Man Far From Home just because it really felt like a nice middle chapter of Peter's journey, dealing with Mysterio, dealing with all this stuff, and just
Right.
being a nice, Spider-Man adventure. And then obviously I love No Way Home for everything that movie did and was, but also just the fact that it maintained that balance of people that showed up in that movie showed up for a specific reason, for a story reason, for an important reason, and left a lasting impact, a lasting legacy on both Peter Parker and the movie as a whole. And I think that this movie does that as well with some of the different surprises that there would be in here. Uh, that being said, I guess I'll give it my score, which and
Mm-hmm.
then we'll go with your score, and then we'll just go into full spoilers here. Which, if you can't tell already, it's gonna be a bit of a shorter show here. But I still think this movie is incredible. So I gave it a 4.5 out of 5,
Mm-hmm.
only because the first movie to me is a 5 out of 5.
Mm-hmm. I gave it a 4 out of 5. So again, I think I gave the first one 4.5, or maybe five. I might have given the first one 5. So a little bit under, but uh, nothing signifying that it's a bad movie. And something that does affect it for me, which we can get into spoilers here now. It's not a spoiler. It's more of an experience thing. It did take away from me, and maybe I'll if I see it a second time or when I watch it at home, I'll get more out of it. But I don't know how it was for you, and I've been seeing this problem as well. So it's not just like a me thing or a Danielle and I thing that we're both experienced this. Is in the beginning, and maybe again, this is why it was
The
hard for me to
audio,
get locked in, was the audio. I
yeah,
was like, what the fuck is she saying? I can't,
yeah,
I'm like, what? Gwen, speak up, please. Haley, can we boost your mic a little bit? Like, what is that? And then, obviously, love Daniel Kaluuya. I love his character, but I couldn't understand a word he was saying. I was like, I need subtitles for this. And
yeah,
he's going full English accent. And I'm like, what is going on? So I'll be very interested to see, watching it at home specifically, putting those
yeah.
subtitles on, pausing, you know, boost, raising the volume. What are we saying? Am I more locked in now than I was in the theater because I literally could not understand what was going on?
Yeah, I agree 100%. I definitely had those audio issues too. I thought, you know, for basically all of it, especially the
Mm.
Gwen stuff at the beginning, I really thought that it was just, a choice because, again, we're in full spoiler territory for this film. So it opens with Gwen drumming as in part of her band,
Oh
her
yeah,
very
uh huh.
short lived band. So I just kind of took it as Gwen is just drumming louder and louder and louder and louder, and the movie was kind of purposely drowning out her audio.
Right.
Now,
Hmm.
judging by everyone's reaction, that clearly was not the intention. But that's just kind of the way that I took it and just rolled with it because she does.
Hmm.
She just kind of slowly gets more and more drowned out. That's really what it was that
Yeah.
a lot of the audio just sounded drowned out by a lot of the other things, kind of the Tenet situation.
Hmm.
And I think with Spider Punk as well, also a little bit of Spider Man India. I felt like he was a little hard to hear at times too,
Yeah.
with some of his
I'd
lines.
agree with that. Hmm.
But it's weird. Not really an issue with Miles or Miguel or any of the other really major characters. It was really mainly Gwen at the very beginning of the movie, but a couple other times throughout the film as well. But I did have
Hmm.
that issue as well. So that on top of my theater being a very very distracting, I think definitely played a part. So I'm excited to get a chance to go at a slightly less crowded time and place, to hopefully hear everything better, see everything better, and kind of take in the movie better. But that being said, that out of the way, let's get into it. So we'll just kind of jump around, talk about whatever we want to talk about. How did you feel about the ending of this movie? Let's just jump right to the end here. Uh, obviously Miles getting stuck in the wrong universe, being
Hmm.
confronted by the kind of evil version of himself as the Prowler. Now, I want to ask you specifically, how do you feel about that? But did you or Danielle, did you catch on before that happened? Because there are a fair amount of hints and breadcrumbs that things were wrong. But kind of how did that whole kind of reveal hit you that he is stranded in this universe that is not his own?
So I did have an inclination that he was in the wrong universe, and that's literally just because of it was very dreary.
Yeah.
Just his surroundings. It was raining and dark and everything. I was like, this doesn't look like the world, the universe we came from. I didn't put together, I think, until maybe the very last moment. When he is tied up on the punching bag, that I was like, oh, okay, and Uncle Aaron is not, dressed as the Prowler in that universe. I'm thinking to myself, oh, maybe Miles is the Prowler, and then obviously we get the reveal, which again was really cool, great way to end the movie. Um, but I didn't really catch on, honestly. I had, again, a few hints. Like I was like, this world looks very different. And obviously, we had, it was a little weird too, when he tells his mom, or who he thinks is his mom in his world, that he is Spider-Man, and she kind of just has like
A
this like
non-reaction.
a non-reaction just because there's no Spider-Man, she
Yeah.
doesn't know what that is. Um, and then it was really cool to see just them kind of slowly peel the layers back. I'm sure I haven't seen like any of the oh, there was this hint and then that hint and then that hint. I don't know if you know any of them off the top of your head, but yeah, I just thought it was a really cool reveal. Really excited again to see what happens and how they find him, because right now I don't think they really know where he is. I don't know what if they maybe they assume like, oh, it's the universe that the spider that bit him
Came from.
came
Yeah.
from. That's another thing real quick. I thought they did an awesome job of explaining
The multiverse.
all this stuff. I feel like it's a lot to take in. And I thought, having Oscar Isaac, explain this whole thing and all this stuff, I thought they did a really good job with that in the different events. They even talk about the canon event in the India Spider-Man's world before they even like tell you what a canon event is.
Yeah.
So I think in that moment you're kind of like, oh shit, like what does that mean? And then a little bit of time later they explain it to you. And but yeah, props to them for explaining all that. And again, that reveal I thought was really cool and awesome. And again, it's half a movie, so very interested to see what happens in the next one.
Yeah, just to touch on the kind of canon event thing, and I think this is a great time to roll over into talking a little bit about the spot.
Hmm.
Uh, I
Yeah.
think they did an excellent job of explaining all of this multiverse stuff, but I think specifically like what you were saying with the Spider-Man India canon event of they did this great thing where before any of this actually came up in the dialogue, you see what the Spot
Hmm.
and Miles see, which is his that kind of vision of Miles's dad turning into Captain Singh from Spider-Man India, turning into Captain
Oh yeah.
Stacy,
Uh-huh.
and
Yep.
they run to get this child, and then the child is kind of turning into these different versions, but it's all the same. The captain runs to save the child, and then the building is falling, but it kind of alternates between Captain Stacy, Captain Morales, and Captain Singh. And that's before they explain any of it. So then when
Hmm.
you get to the scene where Captain Singh is running for the kid, you're already, as an audience member, you're clued in that you're like, oh my god, this is what we saw earlier. Um, and then you get, Miguel explaining it, and, I loved the whole thing of, you know, I can do both, so that's Spider
Hmm.
Man's whole thing is, even back to, Sam Raimi, like, you now choose. You can't do both, and when you do, you overextend yourself, you overexert yourself. They even have a funny joke in here about how Spider-Man in all mediums is always doing the thing where he's trying to pull two things together, and they had
Mm.
some sort of a training facility where there was this Spider-Man trying to pull these two weights together, and then everybody ran over him. But I
Oh
thought
yeah,
I thought that was funny too. But
yeah,
it really just did a great job of visually showing you what these canon events were, then hinting at it with dialogue, and then giving you the full Miguel explanation of what a canon event is, seeing Andrew Garfield's, so you know that, and I also like that this movie didn't just focus on Uncle Ben as the canon event. It focused
right,
on
yeah.
a different one, which is the police captain, which we have
Hmm.
seen many times. I mean, we've had a George Stacy in well, we haven't had any Stacys in Tom Holland's movies yet. I'm sure that's going to change, but uh, you know, I just thought that everything with that was great, and I do think that they explained it super well. But did you notice the Spider Verse stuff with all the red and yellow lines and hexagons and everything
Hmm.
like that was one thing, but then when Miguel actually was starting to explain the multiverse, it was the exact same display
Hmm.
as in Loki and in Quantumania. It was
Oh.
the exact same blue streak with all the
Hmm.
tree branching off of it. It was the like not like,
Right.
oh, that looks like the one in the MCU. Like it was the exact same representation of the multiverse that we saw in Loki. So what are your kind of thoughts on that? And then obviously Lord and Miller have talked about in the pursuit in the last couple days that they did have major influence and discussions and work shared with Kevin Feige on this, that they were kind of, they said, Kevin's philosophy is a rising tide, raises all boats or whatever. So
Mm.
clearly they are linking these multiverses together already.
Mm.
So what do you think that could mean for the next one? Do we get Tom? Do we get Andrew? Do we get Toby? What were your kind of whole thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think it could. That is what that could mean. And like you said, moving over to the Spot as a villain, he's probably the kind of the catalyst for all that. Do we see some big kind of explosion thing where does this event really kind of mess everything up for both universes or something like that? And I thought again they did a really good job of taking. Is it the Spot or just Spot?
I think it's the Spot.
The Spot. I thought they did a
Yeah,
great job of taking the Spot as a villain and kind of obviously having him that background. It's like you did this to me because I was there that night that the thing exploded, and now
yeah,
I'm this thing with no facial features or anything. And I thought they did a good job of building him up to be more of a threat because in the beginning I was like, oh, he's just fighting this like villain that he'll dispose of him in 5 minutes and we'll move on. And then to see him kind of more and more throughout the movie growing more and more powerful, I thought that was really cool to the way that they built him up. And now he seems especially the progression with just his voice and stuff like that. He seems very more and more menacing as you go, and definitely someone worthy of a someone being at the center of some big event like the destroying of different universes and the melding of the two and stuff like that. Um, but yeah, I think I don't know. I wouldn't be shocked if they wanted to keep it separate, even though they've had all this stuff. They've had all the we see Andrew Garfield in his movie, we see Tobey Maguire in his movie, we see all
yeah.
this stuff, we see Insomniac Spider-Man, we see
Donald
we
Glover.
haven't talked about Donald Glover.
Yeah,
So there's all this stuff that like it's like, well, clearly we can connect to the MCU. We have the Venom thing
yeah.
at
Mrs.
the
Chen.
at the Mrs. Chen. So if they wanted to go into that space, they can. But I think they're fine either way, honestly.
Which can we talk about for a second that this movie retroactively makes Morbius make sense now? Because when we saw Morbius, we were like, that's not how
Mm.
Doctor Strange's spell works. It's
Right.
just
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
people who didn't, or it's just the people who knew who Spider-Man was got sent back to their own universes. Why is MCU Michael Keaton getting scattered in this random universe?
Hmm.
And then this movie answers that immediately by not only answering it, by answering it with the same villain. This movie
Hmm.
opens with a random vulture getting sent to a random universe, which is exactly what
Mm.
happened with Michael Keaton.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that's exactly what they were planning, like,
Yeah.
or if it's just a miraculous happenstance.
Yeah. I mean, it doesn't make
Probably
the movie
that
much
one.
better, but
Yeah, but I'm just saying, after
yeah.
Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, Michael Keaton saying, "Not sure why I'm here. Think it has something to do with Spider-Man." Those words are now correct. I
Yeah.
gotta give him props. I gotta give him props. I don't know. I don't know if this is all part of a master plan that they have Mrs. Chen's, shop on a board and Michael Keaton's Vulture on a
Right.
board and Morbius, and they're like, it's all, Amy Pascal is like, it's all gonna, come together. But I do have to say, quick shout out to Amy Pascal, somebody who really, really went through a long, tumultuous time with these Spider-Man movies, almost to the brink of people were, I hate to even use this as an example, but
Hmm.
that, back in 2015, 2016, I mean, people were treating her, like they treat Kathleen Kennedy now.
Hmm.
And, to have her come through that and be like, you know, maybe she's made some mistakes with the Spider-Man franchise and the handling of Andrew and everything like that. But now and I think it helps too that she got her independence with, you see in front of all these Spider-Man movies now, Pascal Pictures. So
Yeah.
she's got her own little wing at Sony. And I think that's given her the freedom to really develop these stuff, because you hear Tom Holland talks about Amy Pascal in such great light now. Kevin Feige always does too. And remember, this is the same lady who in that famous interview was like, well, Venom is gonna inhabit the same world as Spider-Man, and, it will all be connected. And that famous video of Kevin Feige being like,
Yeah.
is it? It's news to me. So I do think we have to give her and some of the people over at Sony credit for, maybe there is a bigger vision going on here that we just really
Hmm.
can't see yet. But um, so much to cover in this movie. Let's talk about Donald Glover. So obviously Donald Glover's super big butterfly effect of being the actual inspiration of the creation of the character of Miles Morales, then playing Aaron Davis in Spider-Man Homecoming,
Hmm.
and then obviously coming back now in this movie as a, I would say, extended cameo, because he's got, I think, 2 or 3 scenes and multiple
Hmm.
lines of dialogue. So I mean, he's definitely not like a blink and you'll miss it thing,
Right.
but he is definitely, in the movie in more than one scene. Uh, what were your thoughts on this? How do you feel like it looked with the live action mixed with the animation? And I think more importantly, is this a direct MCU connection of, do we think that this is the Aaron Davis that we saw in Homecoming, or do we think this is just a one-off, never going to come up again,
Right.
whatever? Because I think it is worth mentioning, I mean, they built a full suit. Like, it is a
Oh
actual
yeah.
on-set
Hmm.
suit, and I don't know, I would think maybe you wouldn't just do that for a, minute of screen time. But
Right.
what do you think?
Yeah. First of all, I didn't know about the whole kind of Donald Glover for Spider-Man movement that happened back in the day. Danielle made me aware of that, and that kind of just adds to the whole cameo. When I first saw him, I immediately thought, oh, this is them paying off the whole Homecoming thing that they did nothing with until right now. Um, and I took it as a maybe like, oh, here's this thing we're gonna do, and we're gonna pay it off now, and we're never gonna do it again, or something like that. Like, here it is. Like, you got him back. Here he
Yeah,
is, Prowler, done. All right,
almost
check
like
the
a
box.
Krasinski as Richard situation.
Right, exactly. And is it possible maybe that he shows up in another movie or something like that? That's very much a possibility. But I definitely think it was him from Homecoming. I don't think it was him
Okay, so you
from.
do think it was?
Yes, I do. Just because. again, it's something they already had in place.
Hmm.
They've laid the groundwork for it. Now they just kind of have to come through with it, and to me that makes the most sense. Um, but it was
See,
really cool to see. That I didn't, that was not spoiled. It was not leaked as far as
yeah,
I know, or
same.
anything that I saw.
Yeah,
So that was really cool to see, and just to hear like the whole kind of, obviously Homecoming, but the background information on from the 2012 campaign of him trying
yeah.
to be Miles
All the way
and
back
the
to Community.
community episodes and stuff like that was really cool.
And not only that, but then you have Aaron Davis in Into the Spider Verse
Mhm.
watching Donald Glover in that episode of Community.
Right, which I didn't
Which is
even
yeah,
didn't even
it's
know
just
that. I saw
like
it on TikTok.
it's like
And
they were really cooking with
to
something.
speak to the animation and kind of live action mesh, I thought it looked great. For me, maybe it's because he's just sitting there, not doing anything, and he's just kind of talking. But to me, it looked really good.
Yeah, my one friend said that it kind of was a little jarring because of I think a scaling issue, but I think that was
Right.
more
Yeah.
just about a foreground background thing. Because I mean,
Hmm.
it's Miles walking through that place, and Donald's kind of right up to the camera. He's kind of he's a
Yeah.
little bit in front of Miles. Uh, but I liked that Hobie Brown Spider Punk. He was like, oh yeah, I caught that one myself. I thought that was a nice little nod there. But
Hmm.
I'll be honest, I this whole time I really never I never thought it was the actual MCU
Hmm.
Donald Glover, but I think you've convinced me because I mean, what would happen if Donald Glover came into a Tom Holland Spider-Man movie? He would either is he going to be the same guy from a decade ago that was,
Hmm.
buying tech out of the back of a van wearing a t-shirt, like, or is he going to have developed and moved on? You know what I mean? So
Right.
I think either way, if they were ever going to bring Donald Glover back in a meaningful way in one of Tom's movies, I think he probably would already be the Prowler. And then it's just
Yeah.
a one line of, yeah, had a couple upgrades since the last time I saw you, haven't I? So I feel like this is almost a way to just kind of do that for us. You know what I mean? And just kind of now, if he does pop up in one of Tom's movies in this outfit, you're not going to be going, whoa, wait, how did that happen? You could
Hmm.
just go, well, it's been 8 years since Homecoming. Or you could say, well, they explained it in Spider Verse. You know what I mean? Like, you kind of have
Hmm.
two different explanations there. So I actually, I think, have come around. I do think, and I hope it was actually the Homecoming version, because then we can just kind of pick up with that character. And clearly, he was waiting in line to be sent back to his home universe. So, I'm assuming he made it back eventually to the
Hmm.
MCU. But yeah, super awesome cameo. Everything like that. But let's on the topic of cameos, how did you like that they not new footage with Toby and Andrew, but how they kind of incorporated their archival footage from their movies
Hmm.
into this? Because I thought they did it really, really well, and specifically the fact that they took the live action footage of Andrew with Dennis Leary's Captain Stacy and then animated all the other Spider-Men with their police captains to be in those same positions so that when they show that big lineup, they all match with Andrew standing over Captain Stacy. I
Hmm.
thought that was really, really cool because they did the same thing with Uncle Ben where they're all like holding his hand,
Right.
whereas with Andrew Garfield it's more like he's like holding his shoulder and like standing over him. But what did you think about how they were used?
Yeah, I thought that it all looked great. For some reason, when they showed Andrew, I could not place him. I was like, I couldn't tell that was him for some reason. I don't know if it was where I was or what the deal was, but like after I was like, oh, that was Andrew Garfield or
I mean, it
whatever.
is
But
over a decade ago, so he's like 12 years
maybe that's
younger.
what maybe that could have been it. But no, I thought that was all cool. How they kind of had to, they like you said, they have all these different shots when Oscar Isaac is explaining it, and you know we have all these different kind of animations, whether it be live action, whether it be different types of animation, or like just like a a comic panel or something like that. Like it's all there, and it all looks fantastic. It all works together, seamlessly, and from what I could tell. Um, since we haven't talked about it, I want to talk about like Gwen and her kind of
Yeah.
story and her relationship with her dad. What did you think about all that? Um,
I thought okay. I thought, and I want to touch on her expanded backstory in this too, because in the first movie, she
mhm.
goes, lost my best friend, and that's it. It's like one shot
Mhm.
of Peter dying in her arms, and in the first movie, she just like got in a fight with my dad, lost my best friend, got
Mhm.
this, got that. Like it's just one little brief thing, but here we get that like 10, almost 15 minutes with her version of Peter, who's
Right.
played by Jack Quaid from The Boys,
Oh,
which
okay.
was awesome.
Got it.
Um,
Yeah.
but his whole kind of lizard situation and story, I thought it was fantastic. So going back to the Amazing Spider-Man movies, I think one of the best relationships in both of those movies, which is saying a lot because he dies in the first one, is
Mhm.
Peter and Captain Stacy, because that's really kind of the relationship that gets the focus in those two movies more so than Uncle Ben and Peter, because then you also get Captain Stacy kind of haunting Peter in Amazing Spider-Man 2, because his whole thing was leave Gwen out of this. And a
Uh-huh.
lot of Amazing Spider-Man 2 is the fact that Peter just can't bring himself to do that. He just can't bring himself to cut Gwen out of his life.
Mhm.
And that being said, I think that Captain Stacy in this movie is like top 5 characters for me. And I'm not seeing a lot of people give him the love and appreciation I think that he needs, because everything that he does in that first 20-25 minutes, because it is like 20-25 minutes until we get to Miles. It is a lot in Gwen's
Mhm.
universe at the top, because then that whole Vulture fight is in Gwen's universe, everything like that.
Right. Yep.
And just the beautiful watercolors that they use, obviously all of the trans flag imagery, which people have speculated, and I don't think that they've commented one way or another, is that potentially Gwen herself could be trans in this universe.
Oh wow.
So I think that's very interesting, because a lot of her universe does have the trans flag colors, and she has trans kids, protect trans kids, signage in her room and everything. And Captain Stacy has a trans, what do you call it, like pin on his
Mhm.
police uniform. So I think that's an interesting wrinkle to it, but also an interesting wrinkle to the watercolors being specifically those colors, but then also the watercolors representing Captain Stacy's emotions, like when
Mhm.
Gwen goes to hug him, and they kind of have that great scene where he's in her doorway, she's rifling through her bag, and he's just, oh, I think we, maybe got a breakthrough in the Spider-Woman case, and
Right.
she's
Yeah.
like, okay, great. And then as soon as, because it's like, I don't want to deal with you when you're talking about this. You know
Mhm.
what I mean? Like I don't want to interact with you when you're hyper fixated on me, on Spider-Woman. And then as soon as he starts to say, you know, any chance you could have a hug for your old, like, is before he even finishes
Yeah.
the sentence, she like darts over to the room and hugs him, and then like this bright red light just comes from both of them. And I thought all that was beautiful. And I've heard the criticism of this movie of nothing is resolved, that this movie is obviously a part one, so you expect there to be
Mhm.
cliffhangers, but that nothing is resolved. And I even fought back, and I even changed one of my friends' minds, because really the main thing that's resolved in this movie is the relationship between Gwen and her father. That's what we
Mhm.
start the movie with, and by the end of the movie, he has accepted her as Spider-Woman. He can't continue being a police captain because he just can't reconcile those two things. But the important thing is, even if he can't reconcile those two things, he chose his daughter over, this
Yeah.
this this police department
Yeah.
that, means everything to him, but it just shows how much more his daughter means to him. I thought that was fantastic. And then, like I said, by the end of it, she's able to openly be herself around him, to the point where, now she feels the confidence that she wants to not only go out and form this team, that we get this tease at the end of the movie of Spider-Punk, all the people from the first movie, Spider-Man India, this kind of team to go get Miles, essentially. But also, more importantly, when Miles is confiding in Gwen of, I want to tell my parents, but I don't know if I should, and she just goes, trust me, don't.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that Gwen and her dad's relationship is repaired
Yeah.
really
Should
is the
probably
reason.
say,
Yeah, it's the reason that
go
Gwen
ahead,
is
you know,
able
yeah.
to talk to his parents directly. That beautiful scene at the end where Gwen comes out of Miles's room and is like, you know, you guys mean everything to him because you taught him how to see the world. Like she does a complete 180 on parents and parental figures in her life. And this is somebody who, again, another really kind of somber moment of the movie that kind of just gets looked over is Miles goes, wait, Gwen, your dad's a police captain. And she just goes, yeah, I know. Like, so she's already, like, accepted the whole canon event thing, and she's just accepted the fact that her dad has to die. And that's why when he says that he quits, it's so much more emotional.
It's more of a relief, yeah.
Because he's not a captain anymore. So he's not going to be the one that dies. So the fact that they just, like, in a movie about Miles Morales, like you brought up, I'm so glad you brought this up because we really hadn't touched on the Gwen stuff. The fact that Gwen Stacy and her dad have this almost movie in itself of relationship and, you know, reconciliation at the end, I thought was just beautiful. And I think that's probably my favorite part of this movie, to be honest, is Gwen and her dad's relationship. But I rambled. I don't even know how I just got all that out without my throat collapsing.
Yeah.
But what were your thoughts on Gwen and her dad and kind of that through line throughout this movie?
Yeah, I feel like maybe one of the toughest parts in the movie for me was just, and not like, oh man, this is boring or whatever, but more emotional is when, I don't know if it's when it must be when she reveals that who she is and that she is Spider-Woman, and he continues to like read her the Miranda rights.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, like he, you know, he's more, and it gives you this sense of like, again, he's battling between like my daughter and my job that I love, and I'm trying to protect people, but in order to kind of, it's just this big kind of fight that you see that he's having. And he has to come to terms with which one does he want more, I guess.
And you know what really bolsters all the emotion is it's just these quick shots, but you see that kind of a family unit was formed with Aunt May, Captain Stacy, Gwen, and Peter. Because you see them, these really quick shots, but you see them at Easter, at Christmas, at Thanksgiving. So, like, they were this little unit, and I feel like in the first 10 minutes of the movie, you believe that, like, Captain Stacy is so upset over the death of Peter because he viewed Peter like as a son, basically. You know what I mean? Like, and that's all just done with these quick shots. So I thought that was fantastic too. I never once was like, I get that they were friends, but why does this guy care about Peter Parker so much? Like I never once felt that. I immediately bought that.
I mean, you saw it when he rushes in after he's like dead.
Yeah.
When he rushes in, and you know he's very clearly very worried about Peter in that moment, and you know I think that carries over later. You know when he's talking about like, oh, you know, like you said, like, oh, you know, we might have a break in the case or whatever, and obviously she's like, well, one, I don't want you to talk about it because, you know, I'm Spider-Woman, but also like in your head, you think I killed him, but like. I obviously, you know, I didn't, but how can I make you see that I, you know, I think that all just works very well. Again, I think what it was, and again, and I don't know if the dialogue or the volume of the dialogue should be a factor in it for me, but it really just kind of took me out of it in the beginning. And maybe I would have been more, engaged had I been able to understand what was going on. What else? What, you know, do we want to talk about Miguel, right? Oscar
oh,
Isaac?
yeah, let's go for it. Miguel O'Hara, Spider-Man 2099. Oscar
How about
Isaac
that
himself.
theme? I mean, that
I
is
know.
very. It's. Am I correct in saying it's Prowler-esque from the
Oh
first
yeah,
one? Okay.
because Prowler's just more like. This
Yeah,
was
yeah,
like.
yeah, yeah,
Like
yeah,
it's got that kind of like eerie, like really interesting, like screeching sound almost.
yeah. Right.
Uh, but yeah, I mean, Oscar Isaac, so good in this. Um, Believable as a villain, believable
Oh,
in his
agreed. Yep.
motivations, but also I love that he is partially responsible for all this going to shit as well. I mean, he
Yeah.
just it also I think they did a great job with these because whether this is going to tie directly into the MCU or not, this idea of an incursion, that's what we're talking about here when the
Hmm.
black thing when Hobie says, when they're like, "What is that?" and Hobie goes, "It's a metaphor for capitalism." Hilarious joke, but also
Yeah.
where else have we seen that black goo
Hmm.
overtaking universes? Multiverse of Madness and What If? We that exact same black goo we've seen in both of those shows with Doctor Strange. Uh, Particularly, I think this movie ties particularly strongly with the Doctor Strange episode of What If because
Hmm.
that episode is about essentially you could call a canon event a what does the Watcher call it in an absolute point in time. Christine's
Hmm.
or not Christine's death, but either Christine's death or his hands,
Or his
right?
hands. Yeah.
So basically, that whole episode of What If is him trying to get around this canon event or absolute point in time, which I'll be interested to know if maybe in a What If season 2, if maybe the Watcher starts to use the terminology canon event.
Hmm.
Just to kind of keep things a little copacetic. I think
Yeah.
that could very easily be done just to basically make it as easy as possible for audiences to understand all this stuff. But then you go to Multiverse of Madness and Reed Richards saying an incursion is when the boundaries between two worlds erode so much that it destroys either one or both of them in the process. And that's exactly what Spider Man 2099 did by going into that universe and trying to take his other version's place in a place that he never should have been.
Hmm.
So he, just like kind of Doctor Strange that we saw in Multiverse of Madness, of him being in those other universes for far too long, and particularly him inhabiting the zombie version of himself, we know that that was about to cause catastrophe. So I thought that was really, really awesome. And the fact that Miguel is like, yes, I want Miles to stop doing this, but I want him to stop doing it because I know what I almost caused. I basically did cause the, you know, uh, what's the word? Like decimation of this one universe, essentially.
Hmm.
And so he's kind of taking that Kang, more so He Who Remains role of I need to be the one to keep balance because I know what happens when balance
Hmm.
isn't kept. But I think a big question that we're going to have, and I think to wrap up here, I want your thoughts on 2099 and everything, but to wrap up here, um, I think that's a big question that we have going into this final part is he right? He thinks that
Yeah.
if Miles does all this stuff, the universe and the multiverse is going to unravel. But how do you know that's going to happen
Right.
until you let Miles, as he says, do his own thing? So, what are your kind of thoughts on 2099 and kind of where we could go with Beyond the Spider Verse and Miles kind of forging his own kind of path?
Um. Yeah, I thought Oscar Isaac doing the voice, I thought his voice, he was very, very good switching between the whole kind of menacing, and I wouldn't say he's like necessarily kind of, I wouldn't say he's necessarily nice in this movie, but when he's able to switch, like kind of talking about, his daughter and his family that he kind of took the place
Yeah,
of the former Spider-Man that was there, um, and how he switches between those two is really good. But yeah, I'm very interested to see like you, like how this, you know, is that at this point he has a proven track record of this needs to happen in every single one of them because I showed you that if it doesn't, then it gets messed up.
yeah,
So how do you? I don't even know how you show that. Do you get in like some time machine and go to the future? I don't know. That's what we're gonna find out in the next one. But I will be very interested to see how they kind of weave that web, no pun intended. Uh, how that works.
Madam Web.
Yeah, Madam Web. And this just got me thinking too. Like, we have all these things going on. We're talking about the connection to the MCU, possibly. We have Venom and all that other stuff. Like, we see, and I'm just thinking this because it's coming out, this year, and I see it on the stream you're showing me. Is does this connect to Insomniac Spider-Man in some way? Do we get some of this story added into the game in some way, shape, or form? Is it, do they want to go that far with it where it's like, well, to, get a little bit more of a hint of where we're going, you're going to have to play the game or something,
Yeah.
Which would be very interesting. Obviously that universe has a Miles as well. Is that all connected in some way? Which should be really, that'd be really cool to see. Oh my God, I had something else I was going to say. I forgot. But no, yeah. Again, Oscar. Everybody's great in this movie, but Oscar Isaac as Miguel was awesome. But one thing I did want to touch on. What did you think of the send home machine? Was that not fucking creepy? That spider that like crawls out of the hole.
Yeah, that was really.
I was like, this is very unsettling. I do not like this.
First of all, I think they did a really good job of the first time you see that machine in action. That it is kind of. I think it's they're sending back a rhino, right?
Yeah.
Like that. Like the rhino is kind of scared. Like they're. Right, it's like this kind of very inhumane thing, and it's kind of funny, creepy when it's the rhino, but then it's very unsettling when Miles goes in it, and then it's even more the most unsettling when he puts Gwen in it. Because Miles wanted to go. Gwen was literally forced into it, which I thought was really, really messed up, and I thought they did a great job to do that. A couple other people that we have not touched on. Amanda Listenberg as Spider-Bite. She was the AI I thought she had some great little moments in there, helping out Miles, making that decision to let Miles go back, even though technically he ended up going to the wrong place, but to help him out a little bit there. Another person I thought, Issa Rae as Jessica Drew, was fantastic. Not too much.
Maybe a little bit
here.
More.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, not too much to do, but I do think they set her up as an interesting launching pad for the next movie, because she's a really good character that's set up of, yes, she's kind of 2099, or I don't know why I keep calling 2099, Miguel's right-hand woman, but she has that moment where Gwen says right before she gets sent back, I thought we were supposed to be the good guys, and then they just cut to Jessica's face and the emotions on that, and we know she's talked about, she has a family, she has a husband, we obviously know she just recently gave birth, so she's got a little kid at home. Speaking of a little kid at home, Peter B. Parker, I thought absolutely fantastic again in this movie. Jake Johnson, incredible again. I love Dad Peter Parker, and I love all that stuff. I really hope that they give him a shot to fully suit up and like really be the definitive Peter Parker of this trilogy in the next movie. Not, again, if they don't, that's totally fine. I would just love an epic moment like that, where he fully suits up and is like, no more bathrobe, no more sweatpants, just full on a Spider-Man for him. But I also really loved Mayday as a character too, and particularly like when he would make Miguel, some of Miguel's lighter moments, like he would give Mayday to Miguel, and Miguel would just slowly try to hand her back to Peter. Like he just didn't want to hold her. Or even stuff like, again, Oscar Isaac's so good, like when Peter B. Park, when he's like, no, you stay here, I've had exactly enough of you today. Like I've had the exact right amount of you today. And then another guy too, I thought Ben Reilly, Andy Samberg, really hamming it up as a as the clone of Peter Parker there. really, really feeling himself in his emo vibes. But again, I thought that he, give him some more to do as Miguel's kind of right hand man in the next movie. But also, I thought, kind of a joke character. But then at the end, he did kind of have an important bit, which is, he was guarding Miles's house, and then Gwen takes him out and takes his bracelet. So where does that leave him? She just kind of kicks him back through the portal. But where did he go? Is he lost, or is he going to be back, or what's going to be going on? So I thought even some of the supporting people, and then obviously right at the end, you get Gwen assembling that team where you have everybody from the first movie back. So you got John Mulaney as Spider-Ham, you got Nicolas Cage as Spider-Man Noir, Penny Parker, she was in the movie a little bit before that, where she, I liked that it, like, when everybody was having that moment of everybody was, like, circling Miles, being like, this is the way it has to be. And then you kind of hear Penny's voice, and Miles turns and is like, Penny? Like, even you're part of this? Like, it was kind of eerie to have a familiar face part of this essentially cult, really, is what kind of the movie treats it like. But then to see that, she kind of breaks out of that and is Team Miles by the end of it as well. But I really like that super tiny, like literally one line moment with Penny, where it's like, in kind of this sea of everybody telling him this is the way it has to be, to hear that voice of this person who teamed up with Miles and taught Miles what it means to be a spider person, to be a part of that, I thought was great. And then any thoughts on Spectacular Spider-Man making a little cameo there? Little guy, little Disney XD guy rocking up in the joint.
I did think that was funny. I did like to see, actually, the one that is like like you said, is kind of doing the training where he's like holding the two things together. Yeah. That looks like a video game one, correct? Like one of the old games. He was very polygonish.
I don't remember what he looked like, but I mean, it very well could have been. It could have been like the Fractured Dimensions game.
I mean, there's some like the T-Rex one. I got a good kick out of.
Oh no, the horse and the cowboy.
Yes, the horse.
The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, where it was Miles, the cowboy, and then the horse, and he was like, on 3, 1, and Miles just hits him in the face, and he goes, "You didn't say 3." That was so funny. And then let's just end off here. That moment that's in the trailers, but one of the most epic moments of the movie, the train confrontation, where Miguel is like really going after Miles, and then the whole I'm gonna do my own thing. What were your kind of thoughts on that whole situation? And then also in that moment too, that's when Peter B. Parker goes, Miguel, this isn't what we agreed on. And then that kind of moment of betrayal where Miles realizes that everybody else knew about this and was kind of keeping it from him.
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously like a big part. I feel like, that was this movie's jumping off the building with the glass kind of behind him moment, that we got in the first one, which was really cool. And again, like, in Miguel's eyes, he is the good guy. They are doing what he's doing what he thinks he needs to do in order to keep everything, the same and, running smoothly. And I thought that was a really, great scene, just of, I'm not going to do what you're telling me to do. I'm not going to do what everybody else has done up to this point. I'm going to go and do my own thing and, do what Spider-Man's supposed to do, and is try to, save people and all that stuff. I thought, that was a really great moment. And doesn't he jumps off and he just I forget what the actual action is.
It's kind of the reverse of the "What's Up Danger" thing, because he jumps. So to keep perspective, it's like the ground, and it seems to be like a less of a train, more like a space elevator, because it's going straight up.
Right.
And I think what it is Miles kind of stands like this and then does a leap off of it, and then he dives back down, but the camera is flipped, so it looks like he's shooting up, but he's actually shooting down to get back to the facility, because that's when he puts himself in the machine.
Right, in the machine, yeah.
Yeah. But so again, kind of really, and a lot of people have said, how come we can't get shots like this in live action? Which I think is going to change. I mean, you can't have. It's one thing to be like, oh, the first Spider-Verse, it was so inventive of how it showed the web swinging and how it showed Spider-Man. But then it's kind of like, well, the movies, John Watts kind of already established the vision. I think with this new Spider-Man trilogy, I think you have a shot to really, because a lot of those Spider-Man movies, I mean, they do seem like big, open things. But I think we saw a lot of hope at the end of No Way Home with that new suit, him swinging through Rockefeller Center in the wintertime with the Christmas tree and everything. I thought that final swing in No Way Home of, like, Peter is now on his own, living in this apartment. I think they really set themselves up for a big tonal shift for Tom's movies. And I hope that they take full advantage of that and try to bring over some of these incredible visuals. Even just the stuff of, like, when Gwen and Miles walk around that thing and then New York, like, flips.
Oh, yeah.
I think that would be something that would be awesome to see in I almost said No Way Home 2, but that's not what that is. In Spider-Man 4 and so on. But, yeah, I mean, absolutely incredible movie. Again, for me, on initial viewing, I still would put the first one above it. But I'm definitely going to see this again.
We didn't even talk about his parents.
Oh, shit.
Yeah.
Fantastic. I loved that this movie, the first movie, really focused on him and his father. So I like that this movie more so focused on him and his mother.
I love when they're in the office and they're listing his grades, like, oh, A in physics, A in this stuff, and then he's like B+ in Spanish, and she was like, what?
Yeah, I really thought really Brian Tyree Henry as his dad really got more of a chance to really shine on his stuff too, because he was just like, oh man, I don't know what you're thinking. Like, I thought that was really, really funny, but really, like, touching, caring stuff too, with everything in this movie. And I think parentage is a big theme in this. I mean, Miguel almost destroyed an entire existence because he wanted to have a family, to be a parent. Jessica Drew, being pregnant and then giving birth. Peter with Mayday of Miles, you're the reason that I wanted to be a father, which I think also could come up, because if Miles is an anomaly who should never have existed, but Miles is the reason that Peter had a kid and got back with MJ, wouldn't that mean that Mayday is also an anomaly? Like, what's the butterfly effect of this? So I think you could also see maybe in the next movie Peter use that and say, well, if Miles isn't supposed to be here, then you're telling me that my daughter's not supposed to be here. I think we could very easily see a scene like that kind of, because I don't think they're gonna, like, kill Miguel or, like, put him in jail or something. It's gonna be them convincing him, hey, this is not the way to do this. Yeah. So I think that'll be very, very interesting. But yeah, I loved everything with his parents in this as well. But so much to dive into, because it really is such a big movie to unpack.
Very large movie.
Yeah. But guys, let us know, what did you think of Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse? Let us know that and more in the comments down below. What you thought of it, what some of your favorite cameos were, what some of your favorite story beats, story elements were. How did you feel about Gwen's whole kind of story arc in this movie? Do you think that was a satisfying conclusion, or do you think this movie kind of left you extra wanting for more? Let us know all that down below. So if you guys are just joining us for the Spider-Man review, thank you guys so much. Make sure you subscribe while you're down there. Thank you for joining us for the review.